This week we're going to talk about three more Psalms, and they're absolutely some of my favorites. And unlike the last 2 weeks talking about how it kind of refers to the law and the works of the law, this week we're going to just talk about Jesus. And we're going to start in Psalm 22. We're going to look today at Psalm 22, 23, and 24. Psalm 22 starts off with, my God, why have you forsaken me?" These are the words that Jesus is quoting from the cross. He is referencing this psalm when from the cross he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And it deals in detail with things from the cross. So let me give you some examples. It says in verse 7 of Psalm 22, "All who see me mock me, they make mouths at me and they wag their heads." Almost word for word quote in Matthew 27, 39 and 40. And then it says, they say, "He trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord deliver him. Let God rescue him, for he delights in him." That's a quote from Matthew 27, 43. It goes on to say this, "I am poured out like water. All of my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me." That's referenced in John 19:34 when they pierced the side of Jesus and blood and water flow from out of his heart. And then Psalm 22:15, "My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue sticks to the jaws of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death." This is a reference to John 19 when he says he's thirsty. He talks about how they've pierced his hands and his feet and I can count all of his bones. That's in John 19:32 because they don't end up breaking his bones. He talks about how they divide the garments. They cast lots for his clothing. That's Matthew 27:35. And so all these things in Psalm 22 deal with the crucifixion of Jesus. Beautiful, beautiful psalm. Psalm 23, arguably culturally the most popular psalm. We're actually going to talk about the most popular psalm from a biblical perspective in a couple of weeks. But culturally, Psalm 23 is probably the most popular psalm. It used to be, at least, in everybody's grandmother's house in calligraphy or in needlepoint or something somewhere in the house, usually the bathroom. I don't know why. Usually that's where it was. And this is, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, leads me beside quiet waters." You know this. You've heard it. I love this last verse, "Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So we have in Psalm 22 the picture of Christ as our Savior. Here we have picture of Christ as our shepherd. He leads me beside green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." All this imagery of Jesus as a shepherd. And we see that imagery, golly, I cannot talk today. We see that imagery repeated for us in John 10, where Jesus refers to himself as the good shepherd, and he refers to his people as the sheep, where he says that "I have come to call my sheep to myself, and my sheep hear my voice, and they follow me." And he goes, "And I've come to not only gather these sheep, but to gather the sheep from other places," speaking of the Gentiles, "and they will bring them into our fold as well." And so Psalm 23 deals with Jesus as a shepherd. And then Psalm 24 deals, I believe, with Jesus as a king. It deals with the return of Christ. And it says this, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers." And then we talked about this last week. "Who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Who can stand in his holy place? He with clean hands and pure heart." And he says that this kind of person will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. He goes on to say, "Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek his face. Lift up your heads, O you gates. Be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." Who is this King of glory? It is the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. "Lift up your gates." He repeats it. "Lift up your gates, your heads, O gates, and lift them up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. So take these three Psalms and let's put them into a single picture, right? And so Christ is our Savior, Christ is our shepherd, Christ is our King. He is the one who came and he died and he gave his life for us. It is the only means, we talked about in the last couple of weeks, it is the only means by which we can stand before God. We're not good on our own. We can't enter into the presence of God on our own. We can't come up the hill of the Lord on our own. We need Christ, and Christ is our Savior. He is our Redeemer. And the next time you're reading the Gospels and you see Jesus say, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Your mind needs to turn to Psalm 22. We've talked about this before, but your mind needs to turn to Psalm 22 like the Jewish people watching Christ being crucified. Their minds would have turned to Psalm 22 as well, and see this imagery and see how it points to the crucifixion of Christ. But our thoughts of Jesus don't end there. He is our shepherd. He is the shepherd of our souls. He is the one who cares for us and nourishes us. Remember in the Psalm 23 where it says, "You anoint my head with oil." This is a picture of the shepherd caring for the sheep. They're wounded. Maybe they have a scratch, a cut. Maybe they have some sort of like bug, a mite or something. And so they would anoint the sheep with oil to heal wounds, or they would do this to remove the bugs from the sheep. And so like he's caring for the sheep. You cause me to lay down by quiet waters. You lead me in green pastures. He is the provider for us. He cares for us. He nurtures us. Don't make any mistake about it. Like, Jesus Christ, your Savior, is intimately acquainted with your life today. He's the shepherd. We sometimes, I think, make Jesus Savior, and then we end. The picture of Jesus for us somehow just ends at Savior, and that's fine that we think of him as Savior, but my goodness, the picture of Jesus can't end at Savior. We have to also think of him as shepherd, this God who cares for us, and he cares for our souls, and he cares for our hearts, and he cares when we're broken, and he cares when we celebrate. And this is why the Bible teaches, cast all your cares on him, because he cares for you. Listen, if you're only thinking of him as Savior and not the shepherd who cares for his poor, pitiful, sometimes stupid sheep, then you're missing this component of the greatness and the mercy of Jesus who loves us and cares for us. But we also can't quit with that. We can't just say, well, he's our shepherd and he cares for us. And we can't just say, well, he's our Savior and our shepherd. That's still not a complete picture. He's also King. And Psalm 24 speaks to the coming of the King, speaks of the return of the King, ascending the hill of the Lord, standing in his presence. And then the King shows up and he reveals himself. And we have got to remember that Christ is our King. We have to remember that he is our God, and that there will come a day, Revelation 19:11 through 16 is one of these places where we see this. There will come a day that Christ shows up and his face is as brilliant as the sun and his eyes like torches of fire, and out of his mouth a double-edged sword, and in his hand a rod of iron to rule the nations, and the hosts of heaven are at his heels, and he comes to rule forever. He is our King. And I love these three Psalms because I think that what they do together is give us the picture of Jesus. Jesus as Savior, Jesus as Shepherd, Jesus as King. And look, teach this to your kids. Like, shape for your kids their view of Jesus as Savior, Shepherd, King, but teach this to yourself. Like, remind yourself that this is who Jesus is. Remind yourself that this is his character, this is his nature. And next time you happen to be in these Psalms, or next time you're at your grandmother's house and you see the 23rd Psalm in calligraphy or in needlepoint on the bathroom wall, remember the Psalms on the other side and how the picture brings it, how it's a complete picture of who Jesus is. We'll see you guys next week.